As we're going through the second chapter of Gittin, we are paralleling in some way. We're running parallel to the second chapter of Megillah. And I suppose there are, natural parallels because the Megillah is basically involved with a with a written document. And it's got to be written in a certain way and read in a certain way. And the get is a written document. It has to be written in a certain way and read in a certain way. And the parallel actually continues with the fifth Mishnah, which we're just going to look at today. Kol ksherim michtovet get. Anybody is kasher to write get. Of course, this reminds us of the famous Mishnah, Kol ksherim likroit ha-Megillah. Anyone's kosher to read the Megillah. Now, of course, in Megillah, the Mishnah goes on to say that essentially, they have to be included in the mitzvah. So someone who's not obligated and a deaf mute, an imbecile, a minor cannot read the Megillah for the community. But here it's going to be different, and we will get into questions of obligation in a minute when we talk about the person is qualified to bring the get. But in terms of the person who writes the get, Hakol ksherim lichtovit get. Anyone can write a get. Afiyu cheresh shoteh v'katan. Even a deaf mute or someone of limited mental faculties or a minor. And by the way, the Gemara does not like this Mishnah and essentially tries to chip away at it. So, for practically speaking, by the way, today you would not get you would not get one of these categories to write your get for you. But it's clear in the Mishnah that it was possible. The Mishnah goes on to say, and that is because, of course, the power of the get is in the signatories and the witnesses to its delivery. It's not in the document itself. That is the crucial principle here, that the delivery is important. The signatures are important. That the get has to be written, but how it comes to be written is not important. It's not like a Torah scroll or a Megillah or some other document or a mezuzah, something like that. Let's keep going. Ha'isha kotevet gita. A woman can write her own get. Really interesting insight into what levels of education might have been like in the time of the Mishnah. This is a woman who knows how to write, and it seems that, well, it would seem that her husband doesn't. I mean, I don't know why he's divorcing her. She can write and he can't. But anyway, seems that she can write. But this seems someone of education. Ha'isha kotevet gita. A woman can write her own get. Ha'ish kotevet et shovaro. A man can write the receipt for the ketubah. When the woman claims her ketubah, the man will give her the money and then he'll write a receipt just to demonstrate, which she will sign just to demonstrate that she's taken the money so that she cannot claim twice. Ha'ish kosevet shovaro. So the man can write the receipt she'ein kiyum haget ele b'chotamav, because the get is only upheld by its signatories or its signatures. Actually, chotamav are its signatories. It's badly translated here. I apologize. On the source sheet. The point about the get of the signatories, that's why anybody can write it. Hakol kasherim lahavir get. So we're going to use the same language here. Anyone is okay to bring a get. Chutz micheresh yotze v'katan. Someh ve'nochri. Anyone can bring a get, but now we are going to have the exceptions, other than a deaf mute, an imbecile, a minor, or a blind person or a non-Jew. And we need to maybe understand why this is. Of course, we already learned that the person that brings the get is going to testify, in my presence it was written, and in my presence it was signed. So some of these individuals, clearly aren't capable of making that testimony. The minor, the someone of limited mental capacity, the deaf mute. Someone who's blind, well, how do they know? How do they see it signed in their presence if they were blind? I think that's the problem there. The Nochri and the non-Jew. Well, this is very interesting. we're going to make the person that brings the get an agent of the husband. The husband is sending the get via a shaliach, via an emissary. And the non-Jew is not included in the halacha of get. Get doesn't apply to him. And for that, if he's not included in the mitzvah, then he can't be made an agent for the mitzvah. That is just a general principle of shlichut, which I think we might learn out in Kiddushin, but it certainly applies here. If you're not included in that legal framework, you can't be an agent for it. Kibel hakatan vehigdil. What about a minor who received it? He was made an agent for the get, and he received it, and then he became of age. So he was given the get when he's 12, and then by the time he's delivered it to the court, he's 13. Charesh v'nit pakach. Someone who was a deaf mute, but he opened up. Soma v'nit patach. Someone who's blind and he opened up. Interesting, the word for regaining your sight in the Mishnah is lehit pater, to be opened up. Shoter v'nishtapa. Imbecile and his reason returned. Nochri v'hit gayer. He could be a non-Jew and then he could convert. Does it work? No. It's pasul here. You have to be in the right state when you receive the get. When you're made the shaliach, when you're made the emissary, you have to be qualified to be made an emissary. So if, for example, if you, for example, had a U-turn, well, let's think about the U-turn now. Pikeach v'nit charash v'chazar v'nit pakach. So someone has sound senses, who then became sound senses. He became a deaf mute, and then he recovered. Okay, he's done a U, but he began okay, and he ended okay. How are we going to go? Piter v'nishtama v'chazar v'nit patach. So he saw, and then he became blind, and then he could see again. Shafui v'nishtata v'chazar v'nishtapa. So he was sane, and then he went insane, or his faculties deteriorated, and then he recovered his reason. So in this case, he started out okay, and he ended up okay. And the Mishnah rules kasher. Because when he got the get, he had senses. When he delivered the get, he had senses. Whatever happens in between is not interesting to us. And the Mishnah will give us the principle. Ze'akla, kol she tchilato v'sofo b'da'at kasher. If the beginning and the end is in kind of b'da'at, in full mental faculty, it's kasher. It's fine. And then the last Mishnah of the chapter, Af hanashim she'einan ne'emanot lomar meit ba'ala ne'emanot lahavir hagita. You know, we learned already in Yevamot, there's a certain classification of women who are not trusted to say her husband died. So we're talking about her mother-in-law, her sister-in-law, the other daughter of a husband by another wife. There's a whole category of women who we know don't get on with the wife, and their testimony is not accepted if they come along and say, oh yeah, her husband died, therefore her husband died, and she's therefore free to remarry. But apparently they are trusted to bring her get. Apparently they are trusted that they would not forge a get, either because this is not an attack on the woman, or perhaps because it's the get stands in any case by its signatories. So the Mishnah says, lomar meit ba'ala, even the women who are not trusted to say her husband died, not lahavir gita, they're trusted to bring her get. Chamuta, that is to say her mother-in-law, uvat chamuta, the daughter of her mother-in-law, ve'tzarata, her rival wife, Vimta, her sister-in-law, Uvat Ba'ala, and the daughter of her husband. Ma bein get lemita. What's the difference between get and death? Shaktav mochiach. The writing proves it. The essential part of this get is going to be the writing on it. And so we don't need to be so concerned about the person that brings it. And in fact, ha'isha atzma meviya gita. A woman can bring her own get. So this is a situation, I guess, where the husband wrote the get, he gave it to his wife, and he said, look, take it to the court and deliver it to the court. And then it's going to be ratified effectively at the bet din. If he just gave her the get, by the way, she'd be divorced, right? There's no need. But this seems to be someone, husband gives her the get, he says, okay, take it to the court. So she goes to the court, and then she says, Ubi levad shetehei tzricha lomar, she must say, Befanai nichtav, uvefanai nit chatam. In my presence, it was written. Befanai nichtav, in my presence it was written. Ubefanai nit chatam, and in my presence it was signed.